Warm greetings from the high 10. Thank you all so much for joining me. Trying to get this situated here for you guys to watch this video by CNN. Um, as you know, the video has been released pertaining to the officers in the hallway Arredondo. Do you believe the chief and those officers that were in the hallway, should they be charged? Thank you all so much for joining me. Get me situated here. Sorry about that. Let's play this video and let's see what we have here.
It's the chaos of the day. We've spent the day reporting about the investigative committee's findings, and a lot of it talks about the chaos of the day, the lack of command. And what we see in this newly body camera footage that we obtained from the mayor here of the city of Uvalde, Don McLaughlin, releasing it to us first. What you see here is a picture of officers really not in control. You have officers outside of the school trying to assess the situation, and then you have officers inside. And specifically, for the first time, we've seen that video, Ryan, of the inside of the school, the hallway of the school. For the first time now on this body camera footage, we see Pete Arredondo, the school police chief. We get to see him in action as he's talking to the officers, as he's near the door of where the classroom is, and some of the decision making that goes into it. Certainly, viewers may find some of the footage disturbing, so just a warning on that. Certainly the language and the footage really depicts just that day, what officers were facing and the chaos of that day.
Shots fired! Get inside! Go!
New body cam video released by the Uvalde mayor shows the frantic first moments police arrived on scene at Robb Elementary. This video taken by Uvalde Police Sergeant Daniel Coronado as he made his way inside the building. But within moments, more gunshots.
Shots fired inside the building, Uvalde!
Which building?
Thank you, honey. I'm doing good. Thank you. Hope you're well too. Hello, hon.
I can't break. Somebody can break. Okay, shot fired. Can't break in here. Can somebody break?
Hey, Lisa.
After taking cover outside, Sergeant Coronado gives his first update on the situation to responding officers.
Okay, guys. He's on inside this building. We have him contained. He's going to be on the building on the west side of the property. Careful with the windows. Facing east. Right there.
Minutes later, Coronado tells dispatch what he believes is happening. That the gunman is in one of the school's offices, not a classroom.
No subjects in the school. On the west side of the building, he's contained. We got multiple officers inside the building at this time. We believe he's barricaded in one of the offices. Messed up. There's no shooting.
But as the minutes continue to tick by, the urgency first seen by the initial response fades away. Instead, Uvalde police officers are seen hunkering down, waiting for more backup. Critical moments pass by at a time children were still alive in the classroom. At one point, you can hear Sergeant Coronado asking for permission to open a door into the hallway, where armed officers are already inside.
Officers inside the building, am I clear to open the door here on the south side of the building?
It's after this moment that we learn that Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo is inside the building. as other officers crowd around looking for guidance. Arredondo has been a central figure in the state's investigation of the shooting. DPS Director Steve McCraw calling his actions on the day of the massacre a, quote, abject failure. As more officers arrive and more in action, you can hear police begin to seek direction.
What are we doing here?
We also have video from Officer Justin Mendoza, who also arrived on the scene. At 11:58 local time, police helped the first students and teachers from a nearby classroom escape the building. At the same time, Sergeant Coronado can be seen helping children escape from a window outside. At this point, it had been nearly 25 minutes since police first entered the building. More than 12 minutes later, we get our first glimpse of Chief Arredondo in the hallway of Robb Elementary. You can hear him pleading with the gunman to give up, but seemingly unaware that children may still be inside the classroom.
Hello, everybody.
You know if there's any kids in there or anything? This could be peaceful. Could you tell me your name? Anything I can know, please?
Moments later, a critical piece of the puzzle from the camera of Officer Mendoza. 911 dispatch gives a chilling account from a student still in the classroom.
Wait, what was that?
And yet, even with that information, 6 minutes go by without any sort of response. Then we see Arredondo with a set of keys, trying and failing to make entry into a classroom near where the gunman is barricaded, eventually handing the keys off to another officer, who does make entry. More heavily armored officers arrive, but no one gives the order to go in. Then suddenly, a new round of gunfire. But after those gunshots, Arredondo again tries to talk with the shooter.
Can you hear me, sir?
And again, minutes later,
Sir, if you can hear me, please put your firearm down, sir. We don't want anybody else hurt. I know.
That's what we're doing. We're trying to get them out.
after no response, police still stand around without much urgency. Over the course of the next nearly 30 minutes, we see more officers arrive. The video obtained by CNN cuts out moments before police reach the classroom and kill the shooter at 12:51 local time. By then, many young, innocent children and their two teachers were dead. And so, Ryan, this certainly paints a more complete picture. Remember, that video that leaked of the school hallway really upset the mayor here, Mayor Don McLaughlin. He was furious over that leak because he felt it was unfair to the families, and he also felt that it was unfair to the investigation because it only showed us one side of what was going on in that school. And so this new video, and this is why he released it, Ryan, what I think our viewers need to understand is that the district attorney, the investigators here, have been holding this video back. And he felt that out of transparency, for transparency purposes, out of fairness, that this side of the investigation, that this side of what happened that day needed to be released. He potentially faces some kind of consequences for doing this, but he says he doesn't care. He's even been afraid that perhaps the district attorney would prosecute him if he was to release this information. But he feels that in fairness to the family, in fairness to this investigation, that it needed to be released. And the other thing we should note for viewers is that we did not publish this. We did not air this video until we knew that family members had been made aware that this video existed and that the mayor said that he would be releasing it. And so we took a lot of that into consideration, of course. But I think this video was very important. It takes, people inside the halls of that school. It shows the police response and just how terrible it was, how some of the decision making was very confusing. You had officers outside who really didn't know what was going on inside. And as we've heard all day, there was no command structure. There was no one making decisions, and it was kind of a free-for-all, and I think this video illustrates that. It also shows that officers were getting kids out of the other classrooms, of course, and rescuing those kids. But significant, of course, in all of this is the fact that this police response just really was so bad, and I think that's what this video illustrates. And that's why the mayor said, look, I know this is going to probably not be great for us, but it needs to be released. And as they announced today, they will be making changes to the police department and also enhancing some training and making some new measures so that hopefully, of course, this doesn't happen again, Ryan.
That is hard to watch. There's no other way to describe it. Especially, hindsight is 20/20, but to see and hear those gunshots going off and knowing what was on the other side of that door is just unbelievable. And then to see the police officers not even knowing for 100% certainty that the gunman was in a classroom with children is just, I don't know, it almost leaves you speechless.
It's the confusion of that I think we keep hearing. I think this is so important. There was just an extreme amount of confusion for some reason. And the fact that people didn't know that you had a sergeant who was outside making these decisions, it just seemed strange. He was asking for the wrong things. He had no idea what was going on inside. And I think that's where the breakdown clearly was. And, we saw that in the report. And, of course, we've been hearing a lot about that. But, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. There's still other footage that we need to see and radio transmission. So we're getting there. And I think this is the other thing. We have been asking for this video for quite some time, really since the beginning. And finally, we have it here. And the mayor, I think it was the families, hearing the families, our interviews with the families, and listening to the families. And so we kept asking him for it. And finally, he said it was time to release it for transparency reasons. And so here we are today. And I think it will give viewers, it's difficult to watch, certainly, but it will give them another perspective of what happened here. And it's a very important perspective.
Okay, thank you all so much for tuning in.
I did something. I watched all of the...
It's not what I want. Trying to find my extra goodies. Just bear with me. I want to play this for you. This is weird to me because now we're hearing that there was a sergeant outside who didn't know what was going on the inside. This is even more crazy because when all this came about, we started getting all these different versions. I was asking about Arredondo's role and his position and where is the actual chief of police. So I am still confused as to who is the chief of police in Uvalde. Is it Arredondo or somebody else? Now you have this information that there was a sergeant outside giving instructions and asking for this and that. Okay, I always thought that was Arredondo that they were speaking of. Now they're saying there was a sergeant outside. So why was the sergeant outside and not inside? Who is the sergeant? Arredondo has always downplayed his role just as somebody who just showed up, not somebody who was in charge. That was always said by him. Now the mayor has released his footage. He doesn't care about any scrutiny or charges. So how do you all feel? Do you believe this video should have been released? Naturally, as this commentator said, they notified the family to let them know that it would be released so there wouldn't be any, fallout from them releasing this video, CNN. But I'm glad that it's released because it shows too many people were in the hallway. Too many people were outside. When you look at all the people that were outside, it makes the situation even more worse because you're looking at all these men scurrying around with heavy artillery and there are people inside of the building in the hallway in a very dire situation, of course, but that is your job. You are there to protect and serve. And there may be casualties in protecting and serving. You may lose your life. You may become wounded. That is your job because it's no different if you went into a situation in a mall, a house, an apartment complex. It's all the same. Sorry about that. It's all the same. So why do we have all these people outside, several men inside? Nobody breaches the door for 70-something minutes. You're getting children out of windows, doorways, and other classrooms, but yet the dire situation was in those two classrooms, and that's what's baffling to me. The fact that they're saying they didn't know if it was a classroom or office that he was in. That's strange. So you mean to tell me you can't hear, you can't piece together where the shooter is? And it's not to be judgmental, but all this is crazy. The dire situation was the 2 classrooms. You're getting children out of other rooms, windows. Were there no windows to those 2 classrooms? That's what I'd like to know. I'm going to play this young man's commentary right here.
You sit there and claim you're doing that for us? You don't even know us. You never talked to anybody in this room. None of us. So don't sit there and say y'all are doing that crap for us. It's not for us. It's for yourself. Somebody always wants recognition off of dumb crap like this. Why are you trying to get recognition off of kids and teachers that have died?
Very interesting.
I've been getting paid $1,000.
Woo, that's pretty serious. Pretty serious. Pretty serious. Give me your thoughts on this situation. Several men in the hallway, a gazillion outside. Almost 300 officers were outside. I believe the number's at 269. 269 officers total. Several inside, as you've seen in the videos, with artillery, with shields. And yet nobody reached the door. The fact that you see Arredondo trying to put keys into the door, couldn't get a key to fit the lock, and then hands the keys to someone else. And then they say that person was able to open the door. So how many keys were on the key ring? Why didn't an officer or officers decide to just take over themselves and say, hey, we can't continue to stand out here in this hallway. We've got to go in that room. It was said that a sharpshooter was asked for in the beginning. So did a sharpshooter show up, and where was he? Were there windows to the classrooms? Because as they were running around the building trying to get into the hallways, I never saw a visual of the actual classrooms from outside. So I'd like to know, were there windows to the classrooms? Because if there were windows to the classrooms, then that means somebody should have enough common sense to peer through the window to see where the shooter was and the children and the teachers. And it's hard to believe that there were no windows, because you hear of children being removed from classrooms that had windows. And the threat wasn't in those classrooms, as you can see. And there was only one shooter. Then you have a child calling, children calling, and you can hear them discussing this in the hallway, that there's a child radio in through their phone, cell phone service, through 911 dispatch. Hey, we're alive. Hey, we need help. Hey, we're scared. Yet you still don't breach the door. Then you have an officer standing outside the doorway, outside the school, saying, what are we doing here? How jacked up is that? So was he angry that he was there? Was he bored that he was there? Was he feeling some type of way about why they're not going into the classroom? Why did he make that comment, that Caucasian fellow? What are we doing here? That's a jacked up thing to say, and a camera's rolling. The fact that Arredondo never had his radio on him, but just his cell phone, but yet he has a camera on him. How crazy is that, to be standing there running around out of breath, huffing and puffing with a body camera on, but yet you don't even have a radio because you felt like that radio would interfere with your movement inside of the building. This is a very horrific story and tale. And although this may seem one-sided, just looking through the looking glass in this hallway, it's still baffling to know that somebody could have lived had they made it out of the room and into an ambulance. And we will never know, because they're dead. It would be up to a medical examiner to say, this one could have made it had he or she made it to the hospital in time. And naturally, they said the scene was horrific due to the fact that the shooter used heavy artillery you can use your imagination that some of the persons were not whole after being shot. So possibly they could not have survived depending on where their injuries were. But nonetheless, somebody could have lived. And that's the point. Somebody could have lived. This is terrible. Horrible. There's really no words to describe it. No appropriate word. Because we're not the ones mourning the death of a child, a wife. This is bad. This is really bad. And you ask yourself, how did it come to this? And no matter what protocol Uvalde implements next time in their school systems or any other school system in the United States, there will be a faulty situation because somebody will drop the ball, because they always do. You still don't have metal detectors and machines for people to go through in the schoolhouse. So therefore, anyone can bring in a weapon. School teacher, janitor, visitor. Because if you're not checking their purses or bag before entry, this will happen again. This will happen again. And they said the lock on the door had been broken for 3 months. So possibly that woman who said she thought the door locked behind as she was running back inside, maybe that was her perception because she knew that the door was supposed to lock, but it didn't lock. So now we hear, at first, the door was possibly unlocked. Now we're getting a version 2 months later, the door lock was broken, had been broken for 3 months. So you have all these different versions coming out day for day, week for week, pertaining to Uvalde. And they're all disparaging, disgusting, pathetic. Broken doors, propped open doors. No one working security at the school. Failed alarm system, I believe. Nothing to alert somebody that hell has broke loose up in the building. How did he get into classrooms? With the doors not locked? Do the teachers not have an automatic lock on the door? Are the doors not automatically locked once you walk in the door and close it? Or does the teacher have to lock it from inside? See, those are all the questions you have to ask. You see smoke in the hallway, which showed you there was heavy artillery from the gun used by the gunman. So naturally, these people were scared, these officers. But think about the children and the teachers in the room. They want out of there. They're frightened. He's letting loose in there. Bam, bam, bam. Start again. Bam, bam, bam. Children being shot to death. Teachers being shot to death. People injured. Little ones injured. Children playing dead as to not alert the killer that they are alive. So in no way can an officer say he was scared. He feared for his safety. He was worrying about his own life because those children and teachers were just as frightened, petrified, horrified, because they were the ones actually in the room with the shooter. And some of them lost their lives. As I said, if you don't change the structure of the schoolhouse and security measures, this will happen again. Because schools are still opening the doors to children and visitors without a baton or a machine for the children and persons to walk through. Metal detectors. Security standing at a door is not security. It's not security. It's not security. And I think we all know this. Tell me what you think. Do you think Arredondo and the officers in the hallway should be charged with said crimes? Negligence, gross negligence of said persons. Tell me what you think. Feel free to go over to my community page and on this said video, just put a yes or a no if you think that Arredondo and the officers should be charged with gross negligence and or murder. And yes, in the beginning, there was, excuse me, discrepancies about a woman going into the schoolhouse to get her children. There were persons saying it never happened. It never happened. But then the woman has been interviewed, from my understanding. I have yet to open the video. So one would say, why would anyone lie about running into a school to get their child or children? I always thought that was strange in the beginning. When I first heard a parent allegedly ran into the school, they were downplaying that and saying it was a lie. It was a lie. But just the other day, I saw a video where the mother was being interviewed that went into the school. So I thought, why would this parent lie about running into danger to try to retrieve their child? And yes, we know of the altercation outside the school initially, where law enforcement was rough handling parents outside of the school. And naturally, the parents wanted in because their children were in there. But when you see the children coming out of the windows, the other children who are not endangered, it's a slap in the face to those who were injured and died and survived in the classrooms. Because you're getting children out of a room through a window, but they're not in danger. And it's not to downplay officers trying to aid the children and teachers to safety, but the main priority should have been the classrooms where the shooter was. And now we have a version that nobody even knew which rooms they were in. This is crazy to me. So it's like, how far off into the deep end are you all going to jump? Because you're sinking right now. Oh, I didn't know he was in the classroom. I thought it was an office. See, this is crazy to me. So you mean to tell me nobody walked up the hall to try to hear anything through a door? Because you got to remember, the killer doesn't know that you're out there unless you're making noise. And then you hear gunfire after Arredondo tries to open the door. Well, when he passes the keys to the next officer, the officer, they say, breached the door, and then there was gunfire again. So naturally, he's letting them know, hey, you're not coming in here. I got this. So I get it. They were petrified to be wounded. But as I said, no more petrified than the children and the teachers in the classrooms. They're the ones in there with the shooter. They were the ones in danger. And somebody was going to have to go in that room 1 hour and more was too long to stand outside a door. That's why I asked the question, were there windows to the classrooms? Because if so, you could have a bullseye view of the classroom with a scope and see inside of the classroom and take a shot. Because it seems to me at this point, if indeed there were windows to the classrooms, this was the only way they were going to successfully take down the shooter without many casualties to children and themselves. So were there windows to the classrooms? And if so, why didn't you all shoot through the window and take the shooter out? This is a very disturbing story, because the versions get worse and worse 2 months in. And it's like, what else can you add to the story? Because it's already worse. Children are dead. Teachers are dead. You have lawsuits on the table. You have mourning parents, mourning community, distrusted community, parents. As you heard this young man saying, what are you trying to take credit for? I don't know who he was directing that commentary to, but it's pathetic to even have to speak the words. So I don't know if he was speaking to the officers that felt like they did a great job by getting the other children and teachers out. Maybe that's who he was speaking to. But those people are alive. What about the children and the teachers who didn't survive? Where were their saviors? Where were their heroes? And you could tell they were afraid out there in that hallway. He's shooting in the walls. Bullets are coming out, exiting to other classrooms from my understanding. So he had heavy ammunition. But nonetheless, there was only one of him. So they still had the upper hand to try to take him down. That's why I said, were there windows? That would have been your easiest aim to take the shooter down. My movie of the week is Clover Hitch, The Clover Hitch Killer. It's a very interesting movie. I'm right at the beginning of the movie right now. As I'm doing this live, I will resume it once I am done. But it seems like a very interesting movie. Please go check it out. It is now premiering on Tubi through the Roku app. And I've posted it to my community board. If you're curious to what the movie is about, it is pertaining to some women that went missing and murdered in a small town. And a young fella is intrigued by the disappearances and murders of the women. So please check out The Clover Hitch Killer, now playing on Tubi. When there's another update pertaining to Uvalde, I will bring you this information. I want to thank you all so much for following the content. New subscribers, viewers, welcome everybody. Welcome chat. I'm not going to hold you all because it is late here in the high 10, but I just wanted to bring you all that said information. I play you that because I rarely play anything on the network, but in this situation, it was best to play it for those who hadn't seen the actual footage, because I'm sure there will be variants of the video out there, but I just wanted to show that to you all so you can get an idea of what was going on in that hallway. But I get it. They were afraid. We're not going to even sugarcoat it. They were obviously afraid, the officers. And there was no command, which was mentioned in this commentary. We now hear that there was a sergeant outside the building. So Arredondo obviously wasn't the head knocker, officer in command. So is there going to be anyone to stand up to say, I am the person that was in command on that fateful morning? Will we get that from some law enforcement entity? Or will you still keep dancing around who was in charge on that morning? Will they continue to keep Arredondo around as law enforcement? Or will he just bail out gracefully? Will he continue to be on the city council? Will there be charges brought up against him by the district attorney's office? And will the city and the parents and the community demand that Arredondo and the officers be charged with gross negligence and or murder, plural, of the said victims? And what will change after this massacre? Will they have machines in the buildings that you have to go through to detect a metal weapon? Or will it be just somebody standing at the door watching you walk through and don't know what the hell's in your purse or your backpack? And the possibility of this happening again. Because as I said, there will be another incident because people are sick and they're not well. And it's also come out that the young man went to that school, Robb Elementary School, and was also bullied at that school. That's what I heard today. When I get more information, I will bring that to you. If you'd like to donate to the channel, Everyday Shenanigans, The Dream, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Thank you all so much for joining me. Have a peaceful night. It's very nice here in the high 10. Prayers for Uvalde. Prayers that this won't happen again anywhere. Pray that the schools board will implement proper security, locks on doors, metal detectors. Because as I said, this will be another accident waiting to happen if you don't have proper staff and proper detectors in the buildings at all entry points, because so long as a person can get in a school through another door, another building, this will happen again. And yes, indeed, it is law enforcement's job to serve and protect. And there will be a risk of casualty, because in the end, it is casualty of war. We are at war out here. We have empty vessels who are bitter and angry, and they're willing to take you down by all means necessary. And that's something we all may have to face one day. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. This is Everyday Shenanigans.